Welcome back. This is part 2 of my Dandadan video. If you haven't seen part 1, go check it out real quick so you can be up to speed on what this video is about. Spoilers ahead if you haven't caught up to the manga yet. So last we left off, Okarun is dead. And I said this would be a great opportunity to bring back Turbo Granny. So let's jump back in right where we left off. After witnessing everything that happened, and remembering everything she'd gone through with the scrawny little twerp, she can't bear the thought of him dying, especially after sacrificing himself to save Momo. Turbo Granny offers to have Momo use her aura to bring Okarun back. Momo asks Turbo Granny if she'll be okay doing this, and what'll happen to her if she does, but there's no time. Okarun's aura is fading fast. So just as she did with Aira and Akrosoki, Momo uses her spirit hands to grab Turbo Granny and Okarun's auras. And just as we saw in episode 7 and chapter 16, we see a flashback to Turbo Granny's past. We get a glimpse into her story, who she was, and the events that would bring about her inevitable transformation into the Turbo Granny yokai. And then, just as we saw Aira's past, we get a glimpse into Okarun's early childhood. Because as of right now, we really don't know much about Okarun at all. We've never even seen his parents or his house for that matter. Yes, we know he's basically been bullied his whole life, but I think this would be a great opportunity to present the instance in his life that caused him to become more isolated from society and focus his attention solely on aliens. And as we can recall, Aira got her powers after the aura was restored by Akrosoki. So this would be the perfect opportunity to give Turbo Granny's powers back to Okarun. And we get to see our favorite little depressive Speedy Boy once again. As for what would happen to Turbo Granny, I don't think her spirit would disappear like Akrosoki did. Because like she mentioned back in chapter 17, it's up to her whether she decides to pass on to the afterlife. Had her spirit died with regret, she'd be gone forever. But after Aira gave her the peace she needed to move on, Akrosoki was able to pass into a kinder world. Turbo Granny is different. She's always been an arrogant, overly confident spirit with no regrets for her actions. I think if she were to use her aura to save Okarun, I could see two things happen. The most ideal would be that her powers are transferred to Okarun permanently because of her aura, but her spirit remains within the doll. This way Okarun gets his powers again, and Turbo Granny doesn't have to remain lonely and isolated and can go back to living at Momo's house with Granny Seiko. Those two vibe together so well. They are the best granny duo. Another possibility I see is that using her aura does inevitably cause Turbo Granny to lose her astral form altogether, and she does eventually end up passing into the afterlife, which is incredibly sad for everybody to see her go. But ultimately, it does bring a satisfying ending to her story and brings Turbo Granny the eternal peace she deserves. I'm sure there's other possible scenarios. I just can't think of any right now. But anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts on what I think could be a really cool future chapter for this series. Do I think this will happen? Probably not. I'm sure the writers have something planned that's even crazier and maybe even more heart-wrenching, but we'll have to wait and see. I do like this idea though because not only is it a major callback to the very beginning of the series and ties it all back to when Momo was basically still learning how to use her powers, it also gives us a lot more insight into Okarun and Turbo Granny's lives. Two amazing and very popular characters that, like I mentioned before, we know very little about. I also think this scenario could be the thing that makes Momo realize just how much she truly loves Okarun and how devastated she would be if he was gone. As of right now, Okarun has flat out confessed his feelings for Momo. He's embraced those feelings and fully admits he's in love with her. But as for Momo, we've kind of seen her struggle with these emotions she's feeling for Okarun and hasn't fully embraced them yet. In chapter 96, we did see Momo leave Okarun a note with the curry she left him in case he finally woke up from his comatose state. And in the note, it says, "Love ya," and has a cute little smiley face with hearts around it. But this message is a bit unclear, even to Okarun. As we later see in chapter 119, he's questioning what she really meant by this note. Does she love him as a friend? Or, as Okarun puts it, as a man? The way his mind works. Okarun is hilarious. Even when she's pressing him to admit that he saw the note and he hadn't said anything about it yet, she doesn't flat out ask, "Did you see my note?" She refers to the note as it. Did you see it? It's time to talk about it. She can't bring herself to just say what she's talking about. And this, I think, sums up Momo really well as to how she's been throughout the series thus far. She does these little things to push the relationship a little further, like when she hugged him for the first time, held his hand for the first time, and wrote that little love note. She's always the one to push the relationship a little further, but at the same time, she never admits admits that she's doing it out of love for Okarun. Even when she holds his hand for the first time, she says it's just because it's cold outside. Momo has always been the most hesitant one when it comes to embracing her feelings for Okarun, pushing him away, denying her jealousy of seeing him and Ira together, and always having this look in her eyes, like she has something to say, but never coming out and saying it. We've seen a lot of emotional conflict within her, and I'm sure deep down she does know the answer, but she's never admitted it to herself or anyone else. But I'd like to bring your attention to chapter 48, when Momo thought that Okarun had died in the magma from the volcanic eruption by Gigi's house. She was devastated, racked with guilt for letting him down and thinking she failed him. However, the moment she sees him emerge from the ball of glue he and Turbo Granny had been hiding in, she embraces him, which up to this point in the manga, they had never done. Chapter 2 doesn't really count as an emotional embrace. They were just holding on to each other for dear life, cause hello, they had just finished battling a giant sumo alien, which means we can count this one out too. Chapter 48 is different. She actually hugs him and holds him for a while, realizing she'd almost lost something precious to her. She's even in tears because of how scared she was that she thought he was gone forever. Momo was even flat out in denial at first to the idea he might be dead. Remember, they didn't know that Okarun and Turbo Granny were in that ball of glue. It was just a big pool of lava. Chiquitita, the alien's kid, was the one that located the glue ball with the beam from the spaceship. This girl was literally about to jump into that lava pool, and the alien dude had to be like, "Are you for real? You want to get cooked too?" Why does the alien sound like that? Then in chapter 50, this was after they finished up at Gigi's house, and we're all heading over to see his parents at the hospital. Momo and Okarun are sitting in the back of the car when Momo starts playing around with Okarun's hand. It even seems like it's getting to the point where they're about to hold hands for the first time. But before the events that took place at Gigi's, Okarun and Momo weren't really anywhere close to being considered dating, except from the perspective of Momo's friends, referring to Okarun as her bae and actually telling Gigi that he's her boyfriend, which I don't think Momo even rejects at this point anymore. But again, their actions don't really demonstrate anything really romantic going on. Sure, they're playful at times. She offers to feed him at lunch and is always teasing him, but nothing really beyond that. But now, after all the craziness at Gigi's, and Momo basically thinking for a moment that Okarun had died, she's suddenly starting to engage in more romantic gestures. And yes, you could say the hug when they rescued him from the magma was just an overwhelming sense of emotions, and she just embraced him because she cares about him. That could be all that was, just a moment driven by extreme emotions. But then she suddenly wants to play around with Okarun's hand in the car, possibly even hold hands? She's testing out uncharted waters. Because remember, she's never really been in a romantic relationship before either, so she has no idea what to do about these feelings and how to handle them. Her only experience with relationships was the seafood platter she dated previously, and we all know how that ended. Even the love ya note she wrote was after he had basically almost died to those crazy aliens, and even she admits she wrote that on impulse because it was in the moment. Momo, what's wrong with you? Why does this boy have to almost die over and over again for you to realize you love him? My point is, if this scenario were to happen, and Okarun would actually for a moment die right in front of Momo, especially if it was to save her life, I think this would be the tipping point that would make her realize what Okarun means to her, and losing him would be just too much for her to bear. In conclusion, what is this, a school paper? I think if this were to happen, it would be so awesome, because as I mentioned before, we get to see more of Okarun and Turbo Granny's past. Okarun could get his powers back, we get Turbo Granny back, even if just for a short moment. And it would definitely bring Momo to the realization that she does in fact love Okarun, and she might finally not only admit it to herself, but actually confess to Okarun as well, just bringing their relationship to an all-new level. Wow, that was a long video. If you made it to the end, thank you. Please consider subscribing, and don't forget to like the video. This is the first time I've done anything like this, so I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, you stuck around this long, so I assume you did. Unless you fell asleep, which in that case. Alright, that's all. See you guys next time. Bye! You still here? That's it. There's nothing else. Why are you still here? Why am I still here? Oh gosh. Can I not leave unless you leave? Wait, what happens to me when you do leave?